Welcome, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. And I'll call the meeting back out of recess. And for the viewing audience, I'll just do a little preamble here. This is the third and last scheduled Committee of the Whole meeting, which is focused on the budget for 2024. Council has had the budget binders for a while and received additional information as requested before each meeting. Staff have completed their presentations, and tonight council will receive some additional information that was requested at the last meeting. After that, council will deliberate and hopefully be able to strike a budget for 2024 this evening. So with that, I'll turn the meeting over to the Director of Finance for the presentation.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to, there's been a PowerPoint presented or prepared for tonight just to recap and go over some of the items, and copies have been distributed to council. So just start with a summary of the tax rate from discussions of January 30th and February 1st, 2024. Last week when we started with the presented levy of 21,508,100, which resulted in a tax rate of 0.008665, which would have been a 5.02% increase over the 2023 levy and tax rate. The number of items that council did talk about last week after the presentations were completed are listed on this screen. They involved the council internet, discontinuing that allowance, contributions to capital reserve of 1% of the levy, which is equal to $200,000. Well, that's the number that we're using. Free use of recreation facilities was removed for $10,200. The Heritage Grant, $2,000 was removed. One call annual license, or sorry, the Heritage Grant was increased for $2,000. The one call annual license of $2,700. This is a portion of annual fees that needs to be charged to utilities. The overtime reductions for winter control by $13,000. Reduced leaf and yard waste pickup in the spring, resulting in $12,000 reduction. Reduced weed spraying. This is a one-time removal only was the discussion at council just for 2024, and that was $17,000. Closed landfill on Saturdays, reduce it to 2 days from 4, and that was $3,000 savings. The calendar that is printed, it was actually a reduction in the quantity printed, which saved $6,500, and a burn permit increases. So this is a charge that's going to be implemented for 2024 of $25 for each burn permit. So the revised levy requirement, given those numbers, those changes resulted in 21,625,900, 0.00871245 tax rate, which would be a 5.59% increase in taxes. Given the discussion direction that was given from council to staff have gone back and they are presenting. We are going to present some staff suggestions that were received or landed upon to add this amount will add 1% into the capital reserve transfer and still have a tax rate increase below 5%. So with each of the different changes that are recommended from staff, I'm going to just read them out and then have the appropriate director speak to the item, and then we'll work through the entire list and then come back and council can give direction. Okay, so the first discussion item was adding back services that were cut at the last meeting. So the reduction was, there were 3 items. I'm just going to go back to the last screen. You'll see 3 items that were highlighted here in salmon. That's the reduced leaf and yard waste pickup in the spring, the reduced weed spraying, the $17,000, and closing the landfill on Saturdays of $3,000. Staff discussions and recommendations is that those items not be reduced out of the budget, that those services continue. And so that is the $32,000 that's actually being added back in with the other discussions. I don't know if the director would like to speak to any of those particular services. Okay. Roads, materials, and sand.
Thank you. The proposal in front of everyone is that we could reduce the materials budget needed by $50,000 for sand for the 2023 budget. The reason for this is when we look at how much material we have in the barn right now, we don't believe we're going to need to bring in any more material in 2023. Sorry, 2024. And we feel that we have sufficient reserves there of the material to get us through, even if we have a stronger winter in the end of 2024 than we anticipate. We're seeing a year very similar to 2021, and we have even more sand in the barn right now than we did then, and we only spent about $70,000 that year in sand. The other option for this is if for some reason our projections are wrong and we do go over the amount that we've left in the budget, which is 60,000, then we do have winter control reserves that for the last number of years we've been putting any surplus into the reserve. To date, we haven't had to take anything out of that reserve. It currently sits at $220,000. And it's anticipated at the end of 2023 that will probably increase in the neighborhood of 100,000, even higher than that. The final numbers have not come in for that, but there's substantial reserves there, and we feel comfortable that we could reduce that and utilize reserves if we have to.
Okay, and the waste management, this is contracted services. It's a $50,000 reduction.
And again, the reason we went back and looked at that is the berm work that we want to do. It could be substantial work in the Violet landfill. Currently, with the staffing levels that we have, we're recruiting for a public works manager, and we are also looking for a public works technical supervisor, and that work probably wouldn't move forward without those two key individuals. By the time we have them recruited in here, I don't anticipate that we will be doing that work in 2024. It's most likely that it's going to happen in the summer months of 2025. We've left some money in that budget to address the roads that are around the landfill that vehicles are traveling on to ensure that those are maintained well, but the actual berm shaping, it's not anticipated with when I look at the timelines that we have and the recruitments that we have underway that we will get to that work this year.
The planning fees, it's actually an increase in revenue.
Yes, so we typically budget revenue, especially for permit fees and application fees, based on the worst case scenario. So not necessarily that we're getting a high amount of permits or application, but that we get like a 4-year average. But we are planning on doing a planning application fee review this year. These fees haven't been reviewed in many years. So we're anticipating that based on what's happening in the industry, that there's high potential. Of course, it has to be approved by council once we come back with a proposed fee that we're anticipating there potentially could be an increase in revenue with those application fees.
Okay, the summer student grant, this is estimated for one student grant being received. So the anticipation is, or expectation is hopefully we'll receive more. Speak to.
Every year we apply for a number of student grants. We are successful most years. As we've said previously, we try not to bank on those grants, but of the number of students that we have, we anticipate that we will get at least one student covered, like one grant for one student. So that's the 5,000.
The internet cost for 4 sites.
Thank you. So this is looking at moving 4 sites, 3 fire halls and the leisure and activity center to standard 1 gigabyte fiber connections from the existing connections with Utilities Kingston. And the contract amounts for those services could then be added to the back end of the Odessa office contract, where we would maintain the asynchronous connection that's required here due to the network requirements and the traffic that we see at this facility. It's an estimated savings of $8,000.
And the council iPad data?
So the council iPad data plans, the discussion, my understanding from discussions with staff is that the data plans are not used very frequently, as we have improved access to Wi-Fi in township facilities and other areas. So that is the thought with that one.
And marriage licenses, $5,000.
Sorry, that's still me. So on this one, the estimated potential of $5,000 in new revenue. I just want to note to council that that is only if the registrar general approves the request for the township to become an issuer under the Marriage Act. So there's just a little piece there that we need to confirm from a legislative standpoint.
And there's a tower rental.
I can speak to that. The township has received a proposal from a reseller of a tower to install a new tower at the Bath Fire Hall. This would be a higher tower, and they're willing to rent the area for which they will resell a tower space. We would still get all of our usual use out of the tower, and they are willing to rent our space in addition to what we see now. So that's was not previously budgeted, that amount, but we're farther down that road. So we've included the revenue from that lease.
And the wages, and we'll walk through the position wages sheets, which are on the next following slides. However, there are 4 positions in there that, because of the later date with the budget being passed, that it's anticipated that the positions will be started. With those later start dates, there's $17,042 that would be saved. And then the final staff recommendation is on the bag tag revenue.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring this back to council again. We kind of brought it up late in the budget meeting the other night with some reasoning why it was brought forward to council as an option. You know, the bag tags have remained stagnant since 2015. So I went back and with finance's help, we did a review of the actual costs of waste management in relation to the percentage that was being covered by the user fee system. So I wanted to bring, we're recommending that if we increased by 50 cents, we could potentially bring in an additional $60,000 for a half a year. It would be well communicated, and we're looking at a potential beginning of kind of July 1 for the last half of the year. The operating cost previously revenue generated from bag tags, it covered approximately 60% of the costs. And I apologize, I have a cough drop in my mouth. In 2024, the bag tag revenue is projected to only cover approximately 42% of the costs. It shows that as operational costs are increasing without the increase to the bag tag prices, the user pay portion of the funding is decreasing. The increased pricing would be twofold. It would bring back in line more of the cost covering by the people generating the waste, but it would also promote more recycling, more waste diversion, which, ultimately we all want more waste diversion, because that gives us more life in our landfills as well. So, I know that council, there was a brief discussion on it, but it did come up late in the evening, and I thought it warranted a little bit more information as to the reasoning why, we were bringing it up and having that discussion.
Okay. So the next, I'm actually going to show you, I have a tax rate calculation slide. And this is with these changes that are in the budget. At this time, you can see that the revised levy requirement, if those recommendations were adopted, would be 21,437,738, or a 0.00863665, which is a 4.68% increase in the tax rate from 2023. So the other part of the discussions that we are going to walk through are the new staff positions. And I apologize, it may seem small on the screen. We tried to circulate this, and we will be posting all of the PowerPoints on the website after we complete the budget delegations. So with each of these different line items, again, I'm going to ask each of the directors to speak to their respective positions, just to give you a little bit more background on them. So the first one is the damage prevention technician.
Thank you. So I will really speak to both positions together. So the damage prevention technician and the operations clerk. So what we're trying to do here is really bring this task in-house, which as a locator, you also need the administrative support, to receive locate requests from the provincial framework. So I'm sure you've heard about One Call, and completing the cycle of returning information back to the requester within prescribed time frame. So it's not just the locator, but you also need the admin support to get this done. Both of these positions are, as we discussed before, would be covered under general rate and utilities, because it is locating water, sewer, storm sewers, and streetlights. I know it's written in the spreadsheet here, but I just wanted to highlight that the amount spent on locates using an external locator, because in 2023, it was all done through a contractor. We spent over $350,000 to do this service. The contract is up for renewal in May, and we've been told that the cost of locating through a contractor is going up across the industry. So as a result, I know there's quite a few municipalities that are looking at bringing this service in-house as well. So for 2024, we have budgeted a total of $369,000 across the board. So utilities and general rate. And that is split between, it's a combination of using the contractor for the first 5 months of the year, potentially 6 months of the year. It all depends when we can bring these positions in-house, because there cannot be a pause in providing this service. It is a provincial legislative service we have to provide. The rest of the year is the cost of the transition of bringing it in-house. So the cost of these two positions. Okay, so we spent over 350. We budgeted 370 for 2024. But it is easy to predict that if we were going to use an external contractor for the entire year, based on the first 6 months of the year of that contract, that we would be spending well over $400,000 for providing locates. And so what we are predicting as well, so if we're moving completely in-house with those two positions, so for example, the 2025 cost would be 100% in-house. So these two positions would cost approximately $162,000 as compared to the $400,000 if you're staying with a contractor.
Okay, so that's the first two positions.
First position.
You'll see on the chart, what we've done as well is we've broken it down so you can see what the cost is of the utilities versus the general cost in the different columns. So we're just talking about the general cost is the amount that's applicable to the taxation. The amounts highlighted in yellow are the amounts on the previous page where I had said that we'd save $17,000 from a later start date. So that's why those are highlighted in yellow. So the next position is the Community Enhancement Coordinator.
So the next positions that are in the list are all from community and customer services. The first one is the heritage, culture, and tourism position. As we've identified, this is a position that it's tied to council proposed strategic priorities, strong communities and organizational effectiveness. This position, this division is in its infancy years. The first focus for it when it was first formed was after COVID to bring the communities back together. Have been extremely successful in that portion. During that time, we did also, the council gave direction and we did purchase 4 heritage properties. They are in somewhat disrepair, I would say. We've had to put, council has given direction to put substantial capital infrastructure into those facilities. Not only did we inherit the facilities, we inherited didn't inherit the collections as well. In order for us to bring them into museum standards and be eligible for more grant funding to operate these properties, we need to shift some of our focus to developing those policies and those procedures. And the 2 staff that we currently have in this are both very well experienced in this field. So we want to utilize their skills. The community, without taking any step back on the great strides that we've made in building the communities back together. In the earlier in the council presentations, there was a question about economic development and building plans, and if we had anything in this budget to address that. Director Merritt said nothing specific, but we are looking at internal resources to see how we can support an economic development. And one of the things she was referring to is with bringing this position in to this division, we have one of ours is very well certified in economic development. She would be able to work more with the businesses, bring more economic development through the interaction that we're having with the community, with the businesses, building a strong foundation for the museums and the collections and presenting them in a way that the public wants to see, also brings visitors to our community, which, is a form of economic development for our current businesses. I can tell you that an example of something that this group does, the Merry Little Main Street, they really supported that very strong with the businesses. I received so many comments from the businesses in appreciation for the support that we did, that day was the best revenue day that they had had all year. The relationships that they're building and that these, this group is bringing forth, is bringing some economic development to our community. So I just wanted to point out the links there that, even though it's not specific for economic development, by bringing someone in to be able to take on more of a front face for the events and keep those events going, we'll be able to shift the 2 that we have that are currently there to utilize some of their skills for the broader building more of a strong community for our community. The next position that I wanted to highlight is the public works operator. Currently, we have winter control contracts that run 5 months in a year. Since COVID, we have had a very, very, very hard time recruiting for these positions. This position is proposed. It would not eliminate the 5-month winter control contract. What it would do would be bring an operator full-time into the complement. It would provide that resource for the new loader that was purchased through development charges last year. So it brings an operator that could allow for that position to be more in the route, the winter control route, and to be utilized during the summer as that piece of equipment is. One of the things that we are finding, and this is true for all three of the positions that we're presenting to be converted that are currently contracts, the recruitment process in this new market is very, very, very difficult. We are spending resources and hard dollars in advertising, training for new people. I can tell you this year, it's been at least 3 times that we have gone out to recruit to fill our winter control positions. And the last one we just was able to fill in the end of January. So it comes to organizational effectiveness for these positions, bringing people in as full-time instead of contract. Then they're more engaged. Our training isn't having to be redone over and over, and we're not having to spend resources recruiting. That's the first position. The second one is very similar. It's taking a 5-month winter contract, converting it into a technician operator. They would still be part of the winter control, but their main focus as a technician would be working on the making sure we remain in compliance for the new environmental compliance linear for stormwater. That is a new legislative requirement that has come into as of, I think it's July for us of this year, for stormwater. And we have to develop the plans, the operations, the monitoring, and all of the reporting. Currently, we don't have the resources to do that. And it's, you know, it's a compliance. We have to do that. And I'm going to reference this. It's similar to when the all the new regulations came in for water and wastewater, and we had to bring in a compliance, somebody dedicated on making sure we maintain compliance for that system. This is a similar situation that we're in for storm. And that's the reasoning. It's again, organizational effectiveness, because we're taking a contract position that has to be filled. They would still be able to work in winter control through the winter months, but their main focus when they're not doing that would be working on the stormwater compliance and meeting that. The last position that is being recommended to convert to a full-time, it's a 6-month horticulture position that we currently have, that we've had for many years, and a 5-month winter contract position that we've had for many years. And it's taking those 2 contract positions and making that one full-time position. It's recruitment of staff. Instead of only doing it once a year, though, we're having to do it twice a year. It's you know, again, the market that we're in, it's very challenging to recruit for these positions, and they have been in the organization for many years. It's only the incremental cost of taking them from contract positions to full-time positions.
Okay, so the next position is the, sorry, project coordinator, conversion from a 2-year contract to permanent. The current contract position was hired to provide coverage for the senior environmental engineer that is assigned to the WJ renewal project. And the contract coordinator manages tasks that were previously carried on by that senior environmental engineer and the engineer manager as well. But what we're finding is that heavy capital program workloads are really resulting in delays at this time in constructing these small scale capital projects, or even efficiently supporting and implementing regulatory changes. So we're not expecting that this workload will lessen in the near future. You know, our government is constantly coming at us with different rules that you know, if you don't have anyone dedicated to really look at all these changes and see how it impacts the corporation and operations, you know, eventually you're getting out of following rules fairly quickly. So what I wanted to highlight with this position is this was not highlighted in the budget binder originally. Sorry, the fact that this position is actually budgeted in general rate and in capital. So the binder did not show that, but the actual budget templates budgeted that position 75% in general rate and 25% in capital. And it's because that position, when I talked about small scale capital projects, we'd be looking after the smaller projects linked to climate action, like looking at HVAC replacement for the Fairfield Water Treatment Plant, looking at a water reclamation system for the sewage plant. Roof replacement is another one of them. So I just wanted to highlight this example there, that it's not necessarily 100% to general rate, but 25% is going to capital, mostly utilities. The next position is, this position is new, so project coordinator, and it's proposed to manage small to medium capital projects with a focus on facilities and parks. These responsibilities are right now, they're carried on by the project supervisor and the facility, excuse me, I have and the facility supervisor in the recreation and facilities maintenance division. But again, similar to what I just mentioned, due to heavy workloads, especially when you're in operations, what we're seeing is that there's continued delays in these projects. And when you consider that the majority of our capital budget program is not driven by new initiatives, it is mostly driven by life cycle replacement. So without resources to complete this work, the backlog just continues to grow. These projects don't go away. And if we delay these projects, it only ends up costing more with inflation. Delaying rehabilitation work also ends up costing more as the asset degrades and until it can be rehabilitated. So and that is why we are proposing this new position, is basically to provide some assistance to the engineering positions that are looking after capital projects. So that position is right now budgeted 80% into capital and 20% into general rate. The next position is the engineering technician. And that position is needed due to an increase in the number of development applications that we're seeing. We're also seeing an increase in application complexity and recent Planning Act legislation requirement to refund fees, if we don't provide approval within certain timelines. But this particular position would focus on field reviews and inspection and to improve our overall infrastructure quality that we get from developers. And that would allow the engineering supervisor to focus more on technical desktop reviews. That position is budgeted at 56% in recoverable from developers and 44% in general rate. And the last position is the approvals planner. So similar to the contract project coordinator, the current position kind of with the WJ renewal project and the large industrial project all happening at once in this department. So similar to the other contracts I was just mentioning, this current contract position was previously approved due to that large industrial development file that required dedicated staff in order to expedite those approvals. We can see now, like a year and a half into it, that the position will continue to be needed beyond the completion of the industrial development. And again, due to the increase in development applications that we're getting, the application complexity, and as you may notice, the public interest in anything related to infill development. And of course, the recent Planning Act legislations to refund fees if approvals timelines are not met. So that position though is budgeted 100% in general rate. And as I mentioned before, we're going to be relooking at our planning application fee, and that partially covers that position, or the positions in planning that are reviewing those applications.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so that's the end of the review of the background for the additional information and what is being recommended by staff. The next steps to adopt the budget would be to adopt the resolution to accept the 2024 budget, and that resolution is just been put on the next slide. After following that, the budget, given the approvals, the budget bylaw would be presented to council for consideration at the February 13th meeting, and the miscellaneous fees bylaw would be presented to council for consideration at the February 27th meeting. And with that, and again, we would deal with this resolution after council has their further deliberations. I am going to change my screen share so that we can go back to this spreadsheet, which hopefully everybody can see that. And I will turn it back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you, staff, for the presentations and the information. Seems to be going around. We've all got a bug in our throat tonight. So what I was thinking is we have all of the items in front of us, the ones that are proposed being put back in due to the impacts basically on the residents for consideration, as well as each of the items that were just presented to us. I thought we could do this almost like the consent agenda, where if there's any items that anyone wants to extract and have a discussion on, and we can vote individually on them. And when we're done that, any of the items that are left, if they're all, no one's extracted them, then we can deal with them in basically a blanket resolution at that time that will cover all the rest. So I'll open it up to the floor. Are there any items you wish to extract? Councillor Budrick.
Yes, through you, sir. The items being added back, I like two of them being added back. One of them, through the discussion was the weeds, that we have a couple neighboring municipalities that took it out, and we could maybe possibly learn from them if we were to take it out. It seemed like the now former director of that, manager of that portfolio kind of gave us a pretty good enough reason why at our last meeting that it could probably be taken out. So that's the first thing I'd like to discuss, sir.
Okay. Council members, any thoughts on that item? Councillor Prodrick.
I would agree with Councillor Buderick about possibilities, and I had asked about in the same vein about cutting, and I don't see any reference to it anywhere, and I was just wondering if we could talk about that or get the rationale behind that.
Yes, we can discuss that once we're done with the weed spraying then, if that suits you. Any other discussion from council? I'm going to share my thoughts on it. I did mention it previously at the last meeting, but I'm just going to reiterate it again. My experience has been that if the spraying is not done repeatedly every year, it allows an opportunity for the noxious weeds and invasive weeds to expand their area. The county has watched, they've actually brought in students each year to map the successes of spraying on the county roads, not the municipal, of course. What they're finding is that after they've been spraying for, I don't know, I want to say 5 or 6 years, but I'm not sure how the duration is yet. I'd have to check with county staff. What they're finding is the areas of weed are being reduced. So now they're able to see savings by not needing to spray the entire right of way, but only targeting the areas with weeds. So that's the way, they're saving money is by actually, being able to reduce their areas, and with the mapping, if another area does, because the weeds will migrate into the right of way from private property, as well. If they see them migrating back in, then they will address those and catch them before they, are able to infiltrate too far, get ahead of them, basically. The other thing with weed spraying and mowing, if you're using mowing for weeds, is that timing is critical. It has to be when the weed is still growing, mature enough to be identified, leafed out enough to be able to accept the herbicide, but not to the point of being to seed yet. And if you miss that and it goes to seed, you've lost that year and you're back to potentially larger areas the next year. So that's my personal history on it. And I know I deal with it at home on the property as well as in other avenues. And that's what I found at both of them. If we do want to remove it for the 1 year, that's an option. I would really hesitate thinking that this was going to be a savings more than 1 year if we do remove it. And potentially next year it could be at least this large if the weeds take a hold better than what they are right now. So that was just my thoughts for consideration. So with that, I'll open back up to council. Councillor Broderick.
I can appreciate that. I guess my question would be to staff, if anybody can answer it. Excuse me, is the township in a position to map the areas you spoke of for targeting? And if we did 100% of what was done last year, would we be able to sit here next year and say, you know, here's our targeted areas we should be looking at, maybe a reduction comes next year? I don't know if we're in that position staff-wise, or you look into that.
Look at the director. I don't know if we have staff to do that this year, or if that would be something we could entertain for next year.
We could look at it and bring that back, whether we can do that or not. That would be done through our GIS division, which isn't, like, we could provide the data, but it's whether that, we have the ability to do that. So we just have to have a discussion on that.
Thank you. Any other comments, thoughts on this? So like I mentioned, what I was thinking is if there's extracted items, we can take a motion at the end of the discussion. It's committee of the whole. So I'm going to leave it very relaxed so that we can have full discussions. At the end, though, we'll do take a motion, and that will determine whether it stays in or not going forward. So if everyone is satisfied.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you can make a motion right now to add the item back. Oh, okay. No, never mind.
So with that, is there a motion that council wishes to bring forward for consideration? And it can be a motion to leave it in or to go ahead and remove it for this year, or whatever other motion a council member wishes. Councillor Budrick.
I would still like to bring forward a motion to have that removed for a 1-year trial.
So moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Parks. Mover, any additional comments?
No, none other than kind of what our now former roads manager kind of talked about at the last meeting. Thought it was doable, and the fact that 2 other municipalities in our county have moved forward in that as well, that we can learn something from them pretty quick in the spring, maybe if they have any issues.
Seconder? Anyone else? Councillor Broderick.
I don't know if this can be provided with the magic spreadsheet there, but I'm just wondering if that did come out, what it would get the tax rate down to. You can fire that up.
Yeah, sorry, that would be an increase. So,
That I can see.
sorry. Problems can get it here, spreadsheet open. I cannot get control of this.
Is it on?
Yep. Somebody else got spreadsheet open. Causes some problems with, so. Just give me a moment. So that would take us to 4.59. If it's added back in.
You? Any other questions or comments from council? Call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Any other items? Oh, sorry, there was one about mowing that was brought forward. A question.
Yeah, I just wondered if director could comment on whether that was considered or, you know, what the rationale, I guess, was. That I don't see any reference to it here.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. We did look at reducing the roadside mowing. At the end, it would only be about a $3,500 reduction because it's fuel. We also did review the parks and the mowing in the parks, but the schedules that we follow for that is set by policy standard by council. So if we wanted to look at that at any kinds of reductions, that would have to come back through and be approved through council. Yep.
So with the items in front of us on the spreadsheet here, are there any other items you wish to extract? Councillor Willis.
Not necessarily for extraction, but just a question to staff, if I may. On the bag tags, do we know what our neighboring municipalities are charging for their bag tags right now? I believe I read somewhere that Napanee is at $3 and going to $3.50 or considering it.
Currently Napanee is at $4. My understanding, we are the lowest in our area. To my recollection, I believe South Frontenac is at $3.75. Yes, I'm not sure what sorry, I guess I stand corrected. Kingston they're at $1.50.
The deputy treasurer has.
Belleville is at $3.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to council. Currently, it's $4.25 in Northumberland County. It's about $3.75 in Quinte West. As indicated, it's $3 in Belleville. And we've already talked about the pricing in Greater Napanee. So that's unfortunately most similar to our west, but that's what the pricing in the area has been.
And sorry, I was turning pages when you said the Napanee. Was that $4?
That's correct. Napanee is at $4.
Thank you.
And I stand corrected. Kingston is $2, not $1.50. I apologize.
Councillor Broderick?
And I don't want any extractions, there's more questions on the same item. Just through your worship. The tags covered approximately 60% of the costs back in whatever year that was. Sorry, I don't see it there. And I guess 215, and now it's about 42%. Sort of a two-part question. Is there a target percent that would be, you know, ideally 100%, but is there a target you're looking at, or what would an increase move it up to, if anything, beyond the 42?
So, I apologize. I didn't do that calculation, but we can definitely do that calculation. You know, the other piece of that is as if we increase them, we are going to see higher diversion rates as well, which is the bonus on that as well. But we can do that calculation quickly.
Right,
Okay,
just make-
sorry, I wasn't sure if I saw your,
Sorry, worship.
any other, sorry, just, yeah.
One further consideration, there was a comment made in the, it's a change in taxes to, one of the things with the bag tags, it's a specific user fee, like it's a user fee. It's not like taxes. So if you, if any of our ICI customers would not have to pay the fee. So it would actually shift it so that the cost is actually applied to people that are actually using the waste services, which are the residential.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Broderick?
Can we move on to a couple, I just got a couple of questions
Yeah,
for a couple other
yeah.
items. Just a clarification from the director on planning fees. Excuse me. So the $20,000, is that an increase based on more submissions? And then if the prices are raised, will that happen during this calendar year? Is that the goal if once a review is done, or maybe fill me in on the direction there?
So through you, your worship, that's a good question. So it's a combination of increased number of application, and it will be increased fees once we get back to council with full report discussing how these fees could be increased moving forward.
And do you have any ballpark on that, or sort of in the
We're-
infancy?
We're going to try to get this done this year for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm just intrigued by this last one, and I think the CAO brought this one up, the tower rental. Will council or the township have any control over what kind of advertisement or whatever goes on that tower?
There will be no advertising on that tower. It's a radio communications tower. It's essentially a new antenna. Instead of 30 meters, it's going to be, I believe, a 54 meter, maybe 60 meter antenna. And this company resells to providers. I believe it's Rogers who is looking for that specifically in that area. And they provide us with revenue for the lease.
Counselor Budrick?
Just back to bag tags. I get it. I understand it. I know it's not something, and it's not that we need to extract it, but on principle, it's the probably third most thing I get people complaining to me about. So I know it needs to be done. I just can't verbally support it.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Willis?
Through the chair, and this is for Director Merritt. You mentioned that the new Provincial Planning Act legislation puts us at risk. If we don't process planning applications quickly enough, we would have to refund the development fees. Have you done any analysis on what our risk is for that if we, if we had to refund 1, 10, like, because I understand that many of these positions are related to being able to meet that provincial timeline?
So through you, your worship. So every application for draft plan approval, zoning bylaw amendment, and official plan amendment has the potential to have fees that needs to be returned. So you're looking at the timelines with some of the applications is within 60 days if you don't provide approval. You need to, and site plan approval, sorry. So if you don't provide approval, then you need to return the application fees. If it's a combined draft plan approval and like a zoning bylaw amendment or an official plan amendment, you have 120 days. So the type of analysis that we have done, we know without looking too far in that most of our approval timelines are beyond the 60 days and 120 days. The major factor is we cannot control the time that it takes for the applicant to return a submission once we provide the first round of comments. And this is something that we've voiced our opinion over when those changes were being proposed by the province, is that the municipalities are being punished and we have no control over timelines, really. We have control over how long it takes us to do the first round of review. But once it goes back to the developer, it could take them, we have applications that we've waited 9 months, a year for it to come back for the second submission so we can provide an answer. So our hands are tied at that point, is we have to provide. So we have to provide the application's fees back. But I need to also, the one small change there is with site plan application, we are able to provide approval with a set of conditions, which we weren't necessarily doing that. So if our hands are forced that we're not getting, comments back in time, we have a list based on the first set of comments or the first review that we've done. We could actually say, we will approve this, but you have to meet all of these conditions before we can actually move you to a final approval. So that's a bit of a saving grace there.
A follow-up through the chair. So for a development, what would the fees look like on that? I mean, is it hundreds of dollars, thousands?
I believe, it's been a while. The fees vary depending on the type of application, but you're looking at, I want to say lower range, maybe $1,500 to about $3,000, depending on the application.
Councillor Parks?
Thank you, through the chair to Dr. Merritt. So just to go back to Councillor Willis's first question in regards to the process, I guess. My understanding from what you just said is that the township has a bit of an out by having those conditions, like a conditional approval, and those timeline windows then don't apply, and the concern for having to pay them back the fees doesn't apply then?
So through your worship, that's correct, but that's only available for site plan approval. So you still have the draft plan approvals, the zoning bylaw amendments and official plan amendments that you don't have that out. Basically, if you're not providing approval or denial within 120 days, you need to provide the fees back. Sorry? Upon request.
I just have another question for clarification on that same point. So if there's a submission and comments are returned back to the developer, the clock doesn't stop, it keeps ticking while they review and provide back, let's say, the second submission?
That is our understanding.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? Councillor Brown? Are we, I just want to make sure that this one we're good with then? Okay, please proceed.
Through your worship, just some clarification questions. The operations clerk switching from a contracted service to our township service, will there be any cost to the resident who wants to get a locate?
So through your worship, currently the cost of providing locates are, if you're a water sewer user, it's paid through your water and sewer bill, and it's the same thing on the storm and street light side. It's part of your property taxes. There's a bit of a reason for that, if I can justify, is I mean, people do not have an option to do work without doing locates. And I know on the water and wastewater side, you would prefer to have all this stuff located rather than someone finding it with a shovel and causing some major damage. So, we could be looking at I know Councillor Parks have mentioned that we could be looking at doing some potentially some revenue for this. But as you start charging people for that service, in addition to what they already pay, they may not call for the locate, and we could have bigger problems.
Next. Just a clarification again from about the community enhancement coordinator at listed at 65,000 starting May 1st. Is that a prorated or is that what it would be for the whole year?
That is prorated.
And then if I may just clarify, so on the last page with, I think it's great to sort of merge positions into full-time. I'm just curious, and correct me if I'm wrong, so the three listed on that page, how many snowplow operators are to that? Is that three? Does each person then become, when you say PW, I think it says winter, I don't see it there right off the top of my head, but theoretically, we're not, when we have part-time, and I know it's hard to fill, we don't necessarily lose a snowplow operator, just to throw that term out there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Those would be either sidewalk, they would be part of winter control, so they would either be sidewalk, working in sidewalks, they would be working in 1 tons, or if they had the DZ licensing that's required for snowplows, they could be in a snowplow.
Thank you. And just one last one. And this is just more, I hope somebody can give me this number just so the general public gets an idea. Savings in recruitment, and I know going through this with another board I'm on, that it really pays in the long run if you don't have to go through those 2 or 3 sessions a year. Do you have any idea, a ballpark, what it would cost to, let's say, every year go through the recruitment for horticulturals? Could you get that information at some point?
Through you, Mr. Chair. We could absolutely get you that, but I can tell you it's in the thousands of dollars. I also had an answer for Councillor Podrick. It's 50% if we were to raise the bag tags by the amount that we've suggested, then the cost recovery from the user fee would be at 50%.
Any other questions, comments, or an extraction? Councillor Ennis.
Thank you. Just a question on the positions where it says it's funded partly through capital. Is that sort of forever funded partly through capital, or does it roll over to the general rate, or?
So through your worship, so the expectation is that position remains for capital projects. So mostly that will be the proportion that stays in capital.
Any other questions, comments, or extractions? Seeing none. Is everyone good then? Because as I'd mentioned, I guess we're at the point now where if everyone is in agreement, we can do a blanket motion. And the wording would be to all items included on the spreadsheet would be reflected within the 2024 budget. Is that close enough for wording?
Yes, Your Worship, we could have the resolution state that the items that are recommended by staff be approved and that the recommended levy requirement going forward would be the 21,420,738.
Okay, and then after that, we would have the full motion with that would be going forward at the next meeting for the bylaw.
No, sorry, so this motion would accept all of the items that amend, so everything that's on the list that we see in front of us. And I will give the fulsome list to the clerk so that she has that for the minutes, so that everything's recorded in there if this is approved. And then the next resolution would be the resolution to adopt all of the rates, et cetera. And I can just take a moment and bring that number up to speed if this one is approved.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure. That's good. I got it out to everybody. So is everyone, if there's no further comments, I would ask for a motion then as stated by the Director of Finance, that all the items on this sheet then would be rolled into the budget. Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor, so moved, seconded by Councillor Prodrick. Any comments from the mover? Seconder?
Just the appreciation to staff for listening to some of our comments and getting it down to a number that I think is, I'm happy with.
Counselor Budrick.
Again, I appreciate everything that staff and council has done. I will support the budget. I just don't like the bag tag increase.
So noted. Counselor Ennis.
I'm happy that we were able to get it under 5% while also including the 1% capital levy for reserves. And I do think that 1% capital levy should be a matter of course going forward.
Again, so noted. Thank you. Any other comments? Back to the move, Counselor Willis.
I also want to thank staff because so much work was done this year in drafting the strategic plan. And throughout the year with council, we've talked about what's important and what the people have told us is important. And many of those things are in this budget. So thank you for not taking those out first.
Thank you. Counselor Parks.
Just wanted to say, I've been on council now for 6 years, I guess. And each year the budget binders get more and more useful, and much more user friendly. So I do appreciate that. And I appreciate the time that staff puts into them.
That brings me back to the mover.
Well, I hope I won't be anticipating the mayor in taking the opportunity to thank colleagues as well. I think council has worked hard to reach some compromises and scrutinize the budget as is appropriate. No one takes any tax increase lightly, and certainly with what we were presented with, and even with what we have got it down to, has taken work, and it's still hard. But I also, again, want to echo colleagues' comments and thanks to staff, but particularly our treasurer and deputy treasurer, who I think the public need to know have only been here for 6 weeks. And have been able to put this budget together in short order. It's certainly trial by fire is no other way to describe it. So our thanks to the two of them.
Thank you. And I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. So with that, the director and the deputy treasurer are going to tweak the final resolution. What I'd say is, why don't we recess for 10 minutes? That gives them an opportunity to make sure that they've got the numbers in, and we can come back and deal with the last resolution at that time. Okay. We'll call the meeting back to order. We've had indication that we've given staff, they're quicker workers than what I gave them credit for. I guess they were done in no time at all, so, but that's good. So with that, we're back for the final resolution. The recommendation is that the report from the Finance Division, January 30th, 2024, 2024 draft budgets be received. That the 2024 general rate operating budget be approved as amended as follows. A township tax levy requirement of 21,420,738. A township residential tax rate of 0.00862980. The 2024 service area operating budgets be received as follows. 937,100 for Amherst Transit. 6,140,200 for Amherst Island Ferry. 12,368,900 and $900 for utilities. The Committee of the Whole recommends that the 2024 Amherst Transit special area tax rate remain the same as 2023 at 0.00058900. The 2024 general rate capital budget be received totaling 62,171,200. The 2024 utilities capital budget be received totaling 8,855,400. That staff post notice of intention to adopt the 2024 budget, and that staff bring forward the bylaw to adopt the 2024 budget to the February 13th, 2024 meeting for adoption. Do I have a mover? Councillor Broderick, so moved, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Mover, any comments? Seconder? Any other members of council? I purposely didn't speak at when the last motion was being made, but I do want to give some thanks again, as was mentioned by the deputy, to council itself. Budgets are never an easy process. There's a lot of needs and not an infinite amount of money. So it's always a bit of a challenge to make it work. I'd also like to thank all of staff under the leadership of CAO Rebecca Murphy. I know her work has been cut out for her for a number of months now. All of the directors, every director has been working very hard. Well, since the end of last summer is the last time that I knew they met to actually start the budget and start pulling everything together. I'd also like to thank the managers who have attended. All the managers were attending the meetings except for this evening. We still do have some managers that were here this evening, and also supervisors. They all gave input to this budget. And I know there's other staff that played part in this, and I can't name them or even know all of the title names, but I appreciate all of their input to make sure that we had all of the information. And also, all of the staff are going to be impacted by this budget. So I appreciate the fact that going forward, their work is going to be cut out for them now because the budget is set and the projects will be rolling forward. As was mentioned, I just wanted to mention too that thank you to the Director of Finance / Treasurer, the Deputy Treasurer, all of 5.5 weeks, 6 weeks. When I said you're at your first meeting, you hit the ground running, we weren't kidding, right? And they already have significant plans to be able to bring reports forward to council so that we have a clear picture of the future and be able to move ahead very confidently. And I appreciate that and I look forward to it. I also know if I could single out one other person, I would like to show my appreciation to Director Jenna Campbell. She made it between her and some excellent staff that were helping us through the process. Alita Moffett, Lachlan McDonald. They were both interim treasurer, deputy treasurer for the township. And they worked as a great team along with everyone else that I mentioned to be able to have a good firm base so that our new director and deputy treasurer could grab it, fine tune it, work with it, and bring it forward to tonight's meeting. So I just want to thank everyone for all of their input, all of their work. And at the beginning of the original meeting, there was a couple of slides where it showed what potentially could have been on the budget. And every one of those staff members looked at it very hard to make sure that they whittled it down to the basic, very basic needs so that it would help us get started off in the right foot. And I appreciate that. So with that, I will go back to the mover for final comment. Sorry, looking the wrong way.
Okay, no, I think it's all been said.
We're good. With that, I'll call for a motion or call for a vote. All in favor? Motion is passed. Thank you. So now I have to go back to my original. I believe the last thing is only adjournment, right? Could we have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Budrick, seconded by Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Motion is passed. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.